Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Basketball Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Nelson, and today we are going to be doing our 3 segments as usual. The first segment is going to be talking about how Isaiah Stewart allegedly punched Drew Eubanks in the tunnel. And then in the second segment, we are going to be talking about how the Lakers beat the Utah Jazz without LeBron James. And after that, we will do a quick recap of the games that happened from last night. We also have a 4th segment in the show as per usual, so stick around until the end to figure out exactly what that segment is. But before I begin, as always, I'd like to remind everyone to please remember to tip and to donate to get your comments recognized. The link is in the description as well as displayed below the ticker on every show segment. The link is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Really helps the show, makes the show much more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Once again, the link is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. And with that out of the way, we can go into the first segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, where we talk about Isaiah Stewart allegedly punching Drew Eubanks in the NBA tunnel. So this was while teams were getting ready in the tunnel. Isaiah Stewart, he allegedly punched Drew Eubanks, and I say allegedly because there was no cameras involved. There's no footage released yet of him punching him. However, he was arrested. That has definitely been confirmed that he was arrested and he was later released. But for those who don't remember exactly who Isaiah Stewart is, he's known as, he's the same guy who charged at LeBron in November 2021 when LeBron got a technical foul. And so far, that's really been the only thing that Isaiah Stewart's been known for recently, given how, he just basically has a history of fighting. It's similar to how Draymond Green is, where it's he's only known for, fighting and whatnot. But that's basically what Isaiah Stewart is. And similar to how fans feel about Draymond being a dirty player, this guy is actually known for being a little bit of a dirty player. I mean, charging at someone, that's some serious anger issues. And he only played 35 games this season, so it wasn't like he was even going to play this game. So I wonder what words were exchanged that ultimately ended up causing him to do that, because I doubt he just decided to randomly punch him for no reason. But Isaiah Stewart has only played 35 games this season and averaged 11 points, 6 rebounds, 47% from the field in all of those games, compared to Draymond, who played 27 games because of his suspension, averaging 9 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists on 51% and 40% from 3. So Draymond, as we know, was suspended indefinitely at one point and considered retirement until Adam Silver said no and lifted his suspension. So since Isaiah Stewart is on the Pistons and he is a Pistons player, I doubt he is going to get the same treatment from the league as Draymond did, because Draymond is very well respected. He's one of the players that has the most rings in the current NBA compared to every other player. He has 4 of them. The only other players that have 4 are LeBron, Steph, and Klay Thompson. So obviously that's some very elite company, being one of the only players in the NBA right now with 4 rings. But Isaiah Stewart, again, he's not a well-known player around the league. I mean, he plays for the Pistons, and he hasn't really been playing any more games. So him getting arrested also doesn't help his case. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Pistons decide to waive him later, given how this kind of off-the-court problems, they shouldn't even be an issue around the team. The team already has enough issues that they need to figure out. They don't need to have an anger problem too. And Obviously, this isn't the first time another player allegedly punched someone this season, or even in the history of the league. As we know, Draymond Green punched Yusuf Nurkic in broad daylight in the Suns game, where all the cameras were on him. So, with that in mind, like I said, this hasn't been the first time that anyone else has been punched in the history of the league. And one of the most infamous Michael Jordan stories is actually of him punching one of his teammates. So, during practice, Michael Jordan punched Steve Kerr in the face. It was a little scrimmage, and Kerr was matched up against Jordan, and Kerr was getting all the calls, and Michael Jordan was getting frustrated. So after a while, there were some hard fouls exchanged between the two players. Michael Jordan got upset, and he ended up punching him in the face. And as a result, Michael Jordan was later thrown out of practice. I don't think he was suspended for a game, but that was an incident that happened when the cameras were off. That's an example. But it was between teammates. It wasn't between two players from two different teams. And there were some fights that did end up on the camera as well between different players. And the most infamous fight that took place in the NBA is called the Malice at the Palace on November 19th, 2004. The Pacers played the Pistons in Detroit. The Pistons had Ben Wallace, Chauncey Billups, and the Pacers were looking to compete for the championship with a roster of Reggie Miller, Ron Artest, Jermaine O'Neal, and several other defensive stars. It was late in the game, and the Pacers had a huge lead on the Pistons, and the game seemed to be out of reach. The Pacers were going to win, and Ben Wallace had an open look for a layup. Now, Ron Artest was in the area. Now, for those of you who don't know who Ron Artest is, he is a physical defender, similar to how Draymond is a physical defender, and he is not afraid to get overly physical in the game, even if his team is up by so much. So he hard fouls Ben Wallace late in the game. No easy buckets, that's his mentality. And Ben Wallace didn't really like that because in his mind, it's like, the game is over. Why didn't you just give me those free points? And push comes to shove. Ben Wallace walks up to him and literally shoves him into the stands. And Ron Artest backs up. And there starts to be a little crowd forming around with those players trying to break up the nonsense. Ron Artest is completely away from that. He is by the scorer's table at the moment, and while the skirmish is going on. But Ron Artest by the broadcasting table when someone throws a drink at him. And once he threw that drink, Ron Artest looks up and was running into the fan section to a fan he thought threw the beer bottle at him, but it turns out it wasn't a fan that threw the bottle, and he started fighting the fan, and a huge brawl broke out. And this game ended with several players getting suspended, 9 players ejected, 5 fans arrested, and Ron Artest got hit with the biggest suspension of 86 games, and he was out for the rest of the season. So, obviously, this was a bad look for the league, and whenever anyone hits anyone else in this league, it is a bad look, especially if the league and it's also even worse if the league lets them keep playing despite their bad behavior, because it's like, oh, they don't care about how violent these players can get sometimes if they don't punish them. So I expect Isaiah Stewart to be punished after his actions before this game. Like, the game didn't even start, and he already started punching someone. And I don't understand what it was. I don't understand, like, why he punched him. Maybe more context in the video will reveal exactly words that were exchanged between Drew Eubanks and Isaiah Stewart. But until then, I really don't understand why he decided to fight him. It doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't belong in the league. It's unsportsmanlike, and overall, it's just unneeded. Like, especially when the game hasn't even started yet. I mean, if the game was over and you were losing, I understand, because it's like, oh, you're in your feelings, boo-hoo. And even then, that's not much of an excuse, given how they're professional players and that's not how they should act. But being upset before the game even started is like, that is some different level of anger management issues. And we thought Draymond needed anger management class. Like, this guy is on a completely different level, Isaiah Stewart. And Dennis Rodman, like, ooh, he's another example, also known for starting fights with other players because of his hard fouling. And so it's not like the league is not new to this sort of thing. And I'm curious what kind of suspension the league is going to give Isaiah Stewart, given how, I mean, while he is like only known for his fights, he's only really known now like for 2 of his fights. I mean, he's just recently getting talked about now, and he's only known for his fight with LeBron. After that, there's like really nothing else circulating around him. So I think this is like the first time I've heard of an altercation before a game even started as well. Like, this could possibly be like, I don't know what he could have possibly said to get him mad. And the game didn't even start. So the words must have been very harsh. Either that or he's just very, very soft. One or the other. I don't understand. I mean, even Ron Artest had a reason for charging a fan. He thought the fan threw beer at him, and that was sort of the reason for him starting a brawl and whatnot. And Ben Wallace, he also had a reason for pushing Ron Artest because he thought the foul was overly harsh. Michael Jordan, he somewhat had, like, I mean, these aren't really relatively good reasons, but it's like they are reasons, and they're a series of events that happen because of like their passion for the game. And I mean, while it's not necessarily like, it's not a good thing, it still happens, and it's like we can't necessarily blame them for happening. Like, for example, with Michael Jordan, he was getting upset with the foul calls. Obviously, you shouldn't punch your teammate, but he was really upset. So, and then afterwards, they were able to work it out. So, I mean, people praise Michael Jordan for that incident, saying that, like, ooh, he toughens up his team and whatnot. But, I mean, this is a completely different story just because of how it's, like, with different players on completely different teams, and it's just, like, it's not needed. The game didn't even start. And that's, like, I don't know how you start a fight and the game doesn't even start. It's like, how does that happen? Why does that happen? And he's most likely going to get waived, like completely getting waived from the Detroit Pistons. I wouldn't want to deal with someone like that after the game just started. The game didn't even start, and he's already throwing hands. Like, no thank you. Not a problem that the Detroit Pistons should worry about. So completely waive him after he's been suspended. I mean, that seems like what's going to be like the series of events. So with that, we are out of time with this first segment. We are going to go into the second segment after this short break, where we talk about the Los Angeles Lakers and their recent win over the Utah Jazz. I will be right back after this short break.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. So, in the second segment, we are going to be talking about the Los Angeles Lakers and the fact that they're actually winning a bunch of games. It is a miracle. I am absolutely stunned at their progress. So, before I get into how stunned I am about the Los Angeles Lakers, I'd like to remind everybody, as always, to please remember to tip and donate to get your comments recognized. The link is in the description below, as well as displayed in the ticker of every show segment. That is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Really helps the show, makes the show much more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewer. So once again, that is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. And with that out of the way, we can go right ahead and get into the second segment of the basketball podcast, which is going to be talking about the Los Angeles Lakers and the fact that they won a game without LeBron James. It's amazing. They did it again. Like, are the Lakers back? Question mark. Are they back? They've been rolling these last few games. They're now 30-26, and they hold the 9th spot in the Western Conference. And they just beat the Utah Jazz without LeBron James. Like, whenever any team doesn't have LeBron James, they're expected to lose. It doesn't matter how good the team could be, they are usually expected to lose now. And the fact that, especially with these Lakers, and now the fact that the Lakers were able to win not one game, but remember, they beat the Boston Celtics without LeBron James and Anthony Davis. But Anthony Davis was in this one, and they played phenomenally in this game. Anthony Davis had 37 and 15 rebounds. Rui Hachimura had 36. Anthony Davis and Rui Hachimura became the first Laker duo since Kobe and Shaq to score 35-plus points in the exact same game. They became the first Laker duo since Kobe and Shaq to score 35-plus points. They've done it. I'm surprised LeBron and Anthony Davis weren't the first players to do that. It's like, how does that happen? How does LeBron and Anthony Davis have been playing with each other for so long? And, like, the fact that Rui Hachimura becomes the first player to do that before LeBron James is like, what? And I mean, finally, the Lakers are 5-1 since Rui Hachimura has become a permanent starter. So, fantastic for the Los Angeles Lakers. Austin Reeves had 22 points, and D'Angelo Russell had only 11 points, but 16 assists. He's been passing the ball pretty well recently. Spencer Dinwiddie had an efficient 10 points on 4 of 6. The Lakers basically got him for really cheap, so really great acquisition for the Lakers right there. Overall, this is a huge win for the Lakers squad and another win without LeBron James in the starting lineup. My opinions on this team, I'm not even going to lie, they've changed. Maybe I was wrong about this Lakers team. Maybe they do have what it takes to make a deep playoff run, and maybe they do have what it takes to be able to convince Donovan Mitchell to leave Cleveland. Maybe. I don't know. I don't think, if I was Donovan Mitchell, I wouldn't leave Cleveland just because of the assets that they have right now. But, that being said, the Lakers are still rolling in all of these games, and it is very impressive to say the least. And again, I think I might have been wrong about these Lakers and this Lakers team. Like, they might have the shot to make a really deep playoff run. They do have to play in the play-in, however. So hopefully we'll see if the Lakers are able to get a little bit higher in the seeding, so that way they could afford to lose one series in the play-in. But again, like, if they could get to the 6th seed, that would be very nice for LeBron James to rest. Nobody wants to play a bunch of play-in games. That's just unnecessary, and it's like, LeBron, he suggested the idea, but he also disliked the idea because eventually his team ended up being the team that needed to play those games. So obviously he would dislike them. But so far, with the starters in this game, it looks like Darvin Ham is learning that Roy Hachimura is a great option in the starting lineup, and it looks like that he will not deviate from Roy Hachimura in the starting lineup. So it's a great win for the Lakers so far. And they've shown that they can beat some competent teams, and they need to keep this consistency going. I think the Jazz should. But if I was the Utah Jazz, after this loss, and now that they're not in the play-in, and with this being the final game of the before All-Star break, I think it's time that the Jazz start to tank a bunch of these games. Now, they seem to have gotten worse after the trade deadline, as now they're completely out of the play-in game, and they are negative by 3 games. Lauri Markkanen had only 16. Colin Sexton had 18 points. John Collins ended with a double-double, 11 and 10. Jordan Clarkson had 17 points. But overall, just wasn't a good game from the Utah Jazz, and they definitely could have played better. But the Lakers were very, very consistent in the paint. And this type of consistency is what the Lakers need coming from the rest of the starting lineup. So it gives LeBron some breathing room, or AD if they don't show up. Like, it gives them some room to not necessarily fail, but it gives them some room to make mistakes. And that's sort of what LeBron has lacked every single time on these championship runs. He always lacks a decent bench. He always has that second option, but that bench and that core of players that come in the substitutions, they aren't as strong. And as a result of them not being as strong, most of his teams don't have the offensive firepower needed in order to overcome in a series. But if the Lakers can continue to be this efficient and still have a starting lineup that's competent enough to continue to score, then it's starting to look like they can make a great run in the postseason. And it's very important to keep this up. And they don't play another game until after the All-Star break. So it's a good thing that they go into the All-Star break being positive and in the 9th spot in the West. That's the spot that they hold right now, the 9th spot, and they look to be matched up against the Golden State Warriors after the All-Star break. Another team that's been winning a bunch of games, but recently they lost a game to the Clippers, but I will talk about that later. But the Lakers, they must win that game. I'm assuming LeBron will be healthy for that game, and he will be in the starting lineup. So another LeBron versus Curry showdown, which is obviously very exciting. But overall, these Lakers, they've been great so far. I thought this season was going to be over because they didn't do anything towards the trade deadline, but maybe they were onto something. And who knows? Darvin Ham's job is safe so far, which is very shocking to say the least, because I honestly didn't expect him to be able to make any adjustments, and I didn't expect him to keep his job for this long. I'm also a bit shocked at how Bron and Anthony Davis never scored 35 points together in a game before. Very surprised. And while we're on the subject of LeBron, there was some buzz going about how the Warriors allegedly tried to persuade a trade for LeBron before the trade deadline this season, which would have seen LeBron play with Stephen Curry. This is what the sources told Woj, And so this was very interesting because this trade was actually considered for a very long time, and that would have changed the entire fabric of the league. Those two together would be like unstoppable. And that would have also been, I think it personally would have been really fun to see. Like, LeBron is known throughout the league as one of the best passers and that the world has seen. And pairing him up with one of the league's best shooters is just a recipe for disaster for the rest of the league. Similar to how it was when KD was on the Warriors, you just have no idea like who to double at times. And it's like, because of that, it just allows much more space and a lot more room for the others to operate. And so for the sake of the league, it would be best that they don't team up like that, just because like it's just way too overpowered. And like that might even damage LeBron's legacy, because there's always like the talk around LeBron, like he always needs super teams in order to win a bunch of games. So pairing him up with the best shooter in the league, and with the rest of the roster, maybe they're going to keep Kuminga, and maybe they were going to keep Draymond out of those trade talks with LeBron James. But that would have been a really difficult team to beat if Golden State was able to get LeBron James. And would I have liked to see this trade go through? Honestly, maybe like a little bit, just because like seeing both of them play together would have been super interesting to me. And honestly, LeBron's chances of winning a ring were probably going to be higher on Golden State with that roster that they have. Not to mention, I mean, Steph Curry, I mean, he's the best shooter ever. And as I mentioned previously, both sides are absolutely rolling right now, so maybe it was for the best that they didn't do that trade, just because, like, I mean, they're winning right now, so it's like there's no need to do that trade if you're winning. But with that, the Warriors did lose their recent game, but still maybe sticking with their big three was the best move, given how like they've won a majority of their games, so it's not like it's all bad news. But with that, we are out of time for with our second segment, and now we are going to go into the third segment of the basketball podcast, where we give a quick recap of the games. And some of these games were the last games that these teams played before All-Star break. So be sure to tune into this third segment after this short break.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, we are going to give just a quick little recap of some of these games that went down yesterday. I already talked about the Lakers games, but there were a lot of games that went down yesterday because on Friday is the start of the All-Star games. And, well, not the All-Star games, but rather the celebrity games, I should say. And with that in mind, we need to be mindful of some of these games and how these are the last games that a lot of these teams are going to play going into the All-Star break. So let's get started with the first game. I have the box scores pulled up on my phone right here. The first game that was on the list is the New York Knicks matching up against the Orlando Magic. The Orlando Magic end up beating the Knicks 118-100. So it was a blowout. Obviously, the Knicks are missing their star players in OG Anunoby and Julius Randle. Jalen Brunson ended the game with 33 points. Precious ended the game with 23 points and 14 rebounds, playing 43 minutes. And Alec Burks ended the game with 13 points. Josh Hart only had 4 points this game, however, and that was really the only production that they were missing. A really weak rotation coming in from the Knicks, given how they only subbed in 4 players, but I guess they just wanted to make sure that everybody was well rested going into All-Star break. The Knicks shouldn't worry about anything. They're totally fine. The Orlando Magic are a decent team, so it's not like they're losing to a really bad team or getting blown out by a really bad team, which then they might have to worry about. Paolo Banchero ended the game with 36 points, 5 assists, and 6 rebounds, so obviously he's trying to show everybody that he deserves to be an all-star, and I mean, he's a really good basketball player. I'm not saying that he's not, but I personally would have preferred Scotty Barnes just because he has the ability to accumulate more overall stats as well as playing better defense. Now, Franz Wagner also ended the game with 21 points, and that was really the only bright side of the offense for the Orlando Magic. And that was really the only offense that they needed because they both were able to outduel Precious and Jalen Brunson in terms of scoring, and the rest of the Knicks offense didn't necessarily show up. Miles McBride, he only shot 2 of 11. Alec Burks shot 5 of 16, and he only had 13 points. So I say this every single time. When you end the game with more shot attempts than you do points, you're not doing your team any justice. And on top of that, Josh Hart also wasn't efficient. He was 2 of 8 from the field this game and only had 4 points. So the Knicks just, obviously they need to get their rotations down, but no time to panic. And now let's go over the other the other New York team. The Nets lost. Next game. Anyways, the Brooklyn Nets only scored 86 points. And the Boston Celtics scored 136. All right. Obviously, there is a lot of stuff that needs to be worked on in this game. The Brooklyn Nets only shot 38% from the field and 32% from 3. Mikal Bridges only shot 4 of 12. The only player that decided to come here and play basketball was Trendon Watford with 15 points. Keon Johnson, 9 points, 2 for 5. Dennis Smith Jr., 7 points, 3 for 7. Nick Claxton, 3 of 6, 6 points. Cam Thomas, 1 of 9, 5 points. Cameron Johnson, 1 for 5, 4 points. Dennis Schroeder, who we recently acquired in a trade, 2 of 8, 4 points. Obviously, the Nets are a terrible basketball team, and you might notice I did not say Ben Simmons because Ben Simmons decided to not play this game. Isn't that just fantastic? Now, obviously, the Boston Celtics just completely own the Brooklyn Nets every single year. Jason Tatum ended this game with 20 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds. Derek White ended the game with 27 points. Kristaps Porzingis made an appearance with 15 points as well. And coming off of the bench, Peyton Pritchard had 28 points. This game was never close, and it was never going to be close. The Nets are a terrible organization. They stink at making a team. The first quarter, the score was 30-15 in favor of Boston. And then in the second quarter, they got outscored 38-17. So how on earth does that happen? Like, that is some really bad basketball from the Brooklyn Nets, and it's very disappointing. So, but with that game out of the way, we can talk about another game that recently went down. The San Antonio Spurs, they lost in a blowout to the Dallas Mavericks. Kyrie Irving ended the game with 34 points, 7 assists, and 9 rebounds. Luka Doncic ended the game with 27 points, 8 assists, and 9 rebounds. And Daniel Gafford ended the game with 10 points and 10 rebounds. So obviously, Daniel Gafford has been a great addition for the Dallas Mavericks for after the trade. And Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, they've been the best offensive players that they could be. Victor Wembanyama, 26 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 blocks. Again, obviously, clear-cut, in my personal opinion, he is the Rookie of the Year. There is no argument for him being anything less than Rookie of the Year. And no other player can argue that they deserve Rookie of the Year over someone like Victor. It just can't be argued, plain and simple. Really nothing much to say about this game. The Dallas Mavericks, they took care of business. We know the Dallas Mavericks are going to be a playoff team. And we know the Spurs, they just aren't doing much with Victor Wembanyama. They really need to rebuild and get a lot of the players off of their team. A lot of the players that don't want to be involved with Victor Wembanyama. Maybe get Victor a better guard to be able to run pick and rolls with. That would definitely be helpful. But other than that, not really much to say. Now, I mentioned previously how Golden State Warriors lost the previous game. They played against the Clippers, so might as well go right ahead and talk about that game. Stephen Curry ended the game with 41 points, and he lost. He shot the ball 31 times. A lot of times, yeah, but obviously it doesn't matter because he had 41 points. So, 41 points, 5 assists, and 4 rebounds were his final box scores. Draymond Green ended with 9 points and 10 rebounds. Jonathan Kuminga, only 13 points this game. He definitely needs to up the scoring a little bit. If he would have scored a little bit more, the Golden State Warriors would have won this game. 6 assists, 8 rebounds for Jonathan Kuminga as well. Klay Thompson, only 12 points. 4 of 14. Klay Thompson, 4 of 14. That is definitely that is not enough offensive production for somebody that is supposed to be the second option and the second best shooter on the team. That is not enough production. 1 of 9 from 3 as well. That is really bad. So, definitely needs to find some improvement there. Draymond Green as well, 4 of 12. I mean, he's not really popular for being an offensive juggernaut, but I mean, you should at least be efficient if you're going to take that many shots, Draymond. And Brandon Podziemski, forgive me if I botched that name, he ended the game with 25 points on 9 for 12, 5 of 5 from 3. That's what a role player should be doing. Efficient numbers on efficient shots and just enough shots. Jonathan Kuminga, he definitely needs to score more points. The Clippers, James Harden had 26 points, 7 assists, and 8 rebounds. Paul George ended the game with 24 points, 5 assists, and 5 rebounds. Ivica Zubac ended the game with a double-double, 13 points and 10 rebounds. And there was no Kawhi Leonard in this game, and the Clippers were still able to win. So, definitely shows just how good this team really is. They had Amar Coffey in the starting lineup, and he ended the game with 14 points and 6 rebounds. So, great game coming in from Amir Coffey. Russell Westbrook, 15 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds. Norman Powell, 21 points, and 2 rebounds. So great overall win for the Los Angeles Clippers against the Golden State Warriors, who were just rolling in a bunch of these games. Obviously, the Clippers are the favorite to winning it all this year. And as you guys might know, if you pay attention to my podcast, that I say this every single time, I have to see this in the postseason. It's that simple. And I've seen it so many times when the Clippers, they look like they can take the team far. They look like they can win several series in the postseason, and they just blow it when it matters most. I've seen it countless times. Therefore, I need to see it in the playoffs. I'm not going to over-speculate anything for this Clippers team, simply because of the history going on around that team and blowing leads. I don't want to talk about it. And I feel like if I just continue to hype them up, the hype is just going to be for nothing. So, on to the next game. The Charlotte Hornets, they beat the Atlanta Hawks 122-99, so another blowout game for the Hornets. Trae Young only had 12 points with 12 assists. He shot 4 of 12 from the field, so not very great there. Definitely needs to improve on the efficiency side. And DeJounte Murray, only 13 points as well with 7 rebounds. Also needs to improve on the efficiency side. 5 of 15 from the field, 1 of 7 from 3. Not very good numbers coming in from those two guards. And the only real highlight for them on offense was Jalen Johnson, who ended the game with 19 points and 12 rebounds. And he shot 9 of 18 from the field, so 90%, not 50%, not too bad, but he missed every single three-pointer he attempted. So the Hawks need to be better. But again, I don't really see the Hawks doing much this year as they have done previous years where they've made it to the playoffs, won a couple of games, and won a couple of series as well. But I don't see them doing that much because they recently lost to the Hornets, and it doesn't really look like they are that same team again. Brandon Miller ended the game with 26 points. Trey Mann ended the game with 21 points. And Nick Richards ended the game with 12 points. Grant Williams ended the game with 15 and 10. So ever since he's been on the team, the Hornets have been winning a lot more games. So maybe he's the real reason why the Charlotte Hornets are on this winning streak. But regardless, not really much to say about this game. So moving on down the list of the games that went down, the 76ers played against the Miami Heat, and the Sixers lost against the Heat. The Heat scored 109 points compared to the Sixers 104. And once again, there was no Jimmy Butler in the lineup, and the Heat were still able to hang on and win. Bam Adebayo, 23 points, 13 rebounds. Tyler Hero, 23 points, 7 assists, 7 rebounds. Duncan Robinson, 20 points, 4 assists. And that was all that the Miami Heat needed on the offensive side of the ball. Everybody else was a little bit mediocre, but again, the 76ers, they are not as good of a team without Embiid in their starting lineup, especially at home. And so far, it doesn't really look like that the 76ers are responding as well as I hoped they would respond with Joel Embiid out of the starting lineup. And with that in mind, Tyrese Maxey, he did all that he could. He scored 30 points in this game, 12 of 23 from the field. Buddy Hield also did all he could, 22 points, 8 for 15, 5 of 11 from 3. Paul Reed ended the game with 18 points, 7 for 12 from the field. And even though they did all they could, and Buddy Hield played 44 minutes, in this game and also was able to notch 10 assists as well as the 22 points. Obviously, this team is just I don't think they're going to be a great team at all going after the All-Star break. Like, I think they're done. I think they should just deactivate Joel Embiid for the rest of the season, and they should just get ready for the next year to try and win, because at this rate it doesn't look like they really have the pieces that in order to keep their spot in the Eastern Conference alive for Joel Embiid for when he returns. Right now, they're the fifth seed, and it looks like the Pacers are going to quickly overcome them after the All-Star break. The Heat and the Magic easily have what it takes to overcome them, and I really don't think that this is the Sixers' year. I think they should blow it up right now. They should stop. And while we're on the subject of the Indiana Pacers recently beat a game against the Toronto Raptors. Obviously, they recently acquired Pascal Siakam from a trade, and he is proving to be a very vital piece to the Pacers and their offense. He ended the game with the most points, 23 points. Tyrese Halliburton ended the game with 21 points along with 12 assists. So he is a phenomenal point guard, great player to watch, fantastic talent. And the rest of the team, obviously, was providing on the offensive side of the ball. Shot 41% from the field as a team. Shot 41% from three, 48% from the field. Isaiah Jackson ended the game with 15 points, 7 of 13. Obi Toppin ended the game with 6 of 9, as well as scoring 15 points. So obviously this Pacers team, again, they won the game, but they only won the game by 2 points. So their defense really needs to be much more improved. Scotty Barnes, 29 points, 12 rebounds, 8 assists as he's getting ready to play his first All-Star game ever. Emmanuel Quickley, 14 points. RJ Barrett, 23 points and 9 rebounds. And Jacob Poeltl, again, pardon me if I messed that name up completely, but all of them played really well. Poeltl had 19 points and 11 rebounds, but that was the only offense and the only bright side for the Toronto Raptors. The rest of the team shot 51% from the field, but still it wasn't enough to beat the Pacers. And the Pacers have been they've been mid. I mean, to me at least, I'm not too hot on the Pacers just because their defense is it's really, really bad and it's really unreliable. And because their defense is unreliable, I don't think they have what it takes to make a deep playoff run. That's just me. Next, the Cleveland Cavaliers. They played the Chicago Bulls, and they won by 3. 108-105 was the final score. And Donovan Mitchell ended the game with 30 points. Jarrett Allen ended the game with 13 points and 10 rebounds. Evan Mobley ended the game with 14. Excuse me. Evan Mobley ended the game with 14 points, along with 9 rebounds. Darius Garland ended the game with 12 points, and that was really the only thing that the offense needed. Donovan Mitchell didn't really shoot that well, 8 for 21, but he still had 30 points, so can't really blame him much on this game. Darius Garland shot 4 of 10. The rest of these players also shot relatively efficient. Not a very strong substitution or rotation coming in from Cleveland. Only 3 players were subbed in from the bench, and those players were Isaac Okoro, Georges Niang, and Karis LeVert. Now, as for the Chicago Bulls, DeMar DeRozan played 41 minutes, scored 24 points. Kobe White has been a severely underrated guard this season, 32 points, 4 assists, and 7 rebounds. Andre Drummond had 10 points and 15 rebounds. And that was really the only bright spots on the offensive side of the ball for the Chicago Bulls. But obviously, Chicago Bulls have been a mediocre team, 26-29, one of the teams that have done absolutely nothing around the trade deadline for the last 4 years. And it's really, I don't know where this team expects to go. But on one team that I expect to go really far is the Sacramento Kings, who have just recently beat the Denver Nuggets at the Denver Nuggets home. De'Aaron Fox ended the game with 30 points, 8 assists, and 8 rebounds. Domantas Sabonis ended the game with 20 points, as well as 13 rebounds. And Harrison Barnes ended the game with 20 points. And that was the only offense that the Sacramento Kings needed in order to pull off this win. Nikola Jokic had one of his bad offensive nights, scoring only 15 points, 8 assists, and 5 rebounds. Michael Porter Jr. had only 19 points. Aaron Gordon led the scoring in 25 and led in the rebounding as well with 15. And it just wasn't enough to beat the Sacramento Kings. So obviously, Jokic had a pretty bad game in this one. So assuming that he has his usual performances in the postseason, his great games that he usually has, he's going to be fine. The Nuggets are going to be fine. And a team that's not going to be fine, the Washington Wizards. Now, the Wizards recently lost to the Pelicans. Jordan Poole had 19 points, so he was better in this outing than he was in normal outings. We had a random 40-point game come in from Denny Avdija, 43 points, 15 rebounds. Tyus Jones ended the game with 14 points, 15 assists. And Marvin Bagley ended the game with 14 points and 10 rebounds. Wasn't enough, however, to beat the Pelicans. Zion Williamson ended the game with 36 points, 8 assists, 6 rebounds. Brandon Ingram with 18, 8, and 3. CJ McCollum also ended the game with 26, 6, and 3. So, obviously, the offense has been great for the Pelicans, but the defense has not been that great for the Pelicans, given how I talked about them in a previous segment when they went up against the Lakers. Their paint defense was extremely weak, and so far their paint defense doesn't look like it's getting better in this game whatsoever. And the last game that we have on this list, because we are running out of time, is the Phoenix Suns going up against the Detroit Pistons. And I mentioned in the previous segment how Bradley Beal only played 5 minutes in the last game. Well, Devin Booker only played 5 minutes in this game as he got ejected with only 7 points. So it was up to Kevin Durant and the rest of the team to be able to pull this victory out, which they did, and they won in a blowout, winning by 16 points. Kevin Durant scored 25, 6, and 6. And Eric Gordon ended the game with 13. Jusuf Nurkic ended the game with 10 and 13 as well. And Saban Lee ended the game with 16 points. And that's all the games so far, all the important games that happened. And we wait as we go into All-Star break. But before we go into that, we have a fourth segment where I'm going to just basically talk about the last day before All-Star Weekend and some of the games that are going to happen later tonight, as well as give my opinions on some of the teams and their spots going into All-Star break. So I will be right back after the short break. Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. And we're here. Today is the last day before the All-Star Weekend and the All-Star break. And tomorrow is going to be the start of All-Star Weekend with a bunch of games going down at around 9 o'clock at night on TNT. It is going to be Team Jalen and Team Tamika going against each other at 9 o'clock, and Team Detlef and Team Pau going against each other at 9:30. So, with that in mind, today there are only 3 games going down tonight, and, only 3 games that are going down that are important to the regular season and the team record. So let's get started with talking about these games and what to expect. So the first game that will be starting is going to be on TNT, and it's going to be the Milwaukee Bucks going against the Memphis Grizzlies. So it should be an easy win for the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks should take this game and they should grab it by the throat, and they should say that they are going to come out winning this game. They need to come out winning this game because after this All-Star break, they need to start going on a big run of wins to pile up so that way they can get a good seed for the playoffs. And recently, Damian Lillard has not been playing well. He really has not. Giannis is shooting better than Damian Lillard from 3 this season. And that is not ideal for someone like Damian Lillard. I understand that Damian Lillard takes a lot more difficult shots. However, he is also known for making those difficult shots. And the fact that he's not making them now just shows that he's downgraded a lot in this season. And they can't afford that. And while the Bucks don't play at home, the Memphis Grizzlies do not have their best player, Ja Morant. Therefore, they should see this as an easy win. Like, these Bucks, this win is theirs for the taking, especially since they've been winning some of these games. Not all of the games, but they've been winning some of the games. And if I remember correctly, I'm looking through the schedule right now. I believe the Bucks actually beat the Memphis Grizzlies the last time that they met. I'm just checking the schedule, just checking to see when the last time they met was. But as of right now, I mean, it looks like, obviously, like the Bucks are a much more formidable team than the Memphis Grizzlies. So with that in mind, I think the Bucks should easily come out with this win. Then again, they do have Doc, so anything is possible. Then the other game that is going down is Golden State going up against Utah at 9 o'clock. The Golden State Warriors, obviously, like I just talked about them in the previous segment, they are recently coming off of a loss to the Los Angeles Clippers. So really, they need this win, and they beat the Utah Jazz before on Monday, on February 12th. So they really shouldn't have a difficulty trying to beat them again. And Steph Curry just recently came off of a big game. I expect him to have another big game this game. Actually, wait, no. Take that back. I expect him to slow down a little bit in this game, simply because it's a back-to-back game, and a lot of these players can't, it's a little bit difficult to play in back-to-back games, and it's a little bit difficult to produce the same on a back-to-back game. But again, I feel like the Jazz should be in a rebuilding mode right now. They really shouldn't worry about this season. It's a lost cause for them right now. And that leaves us with the last game of the before the All-Star break, which is the Timberwolves going up against the Trailblazers. I personally think the Timberwolves are going to beat the Trailblazers and run away with this win. Anthony Edwards is going to have a great game, as well as Karl Anthony Towns. But other than that, not really much to really talk about this game. So for the remainder of the show, I'm going to do something a little bit different, and I'm going to give each team a grade of how I believe they've been performing this season. So we will start with the Eastern Conference, and we'll begin with the Pistons. So, clear-cut Pistons, Wizards, and Hornets, I'm giving them an F. All these teams deserve an F. I expected the Wizards to be bad, but I didn't expect them to be this bad. The Wizards deserve an F- because grabbing someone like Jordan Poole to pair with Kyle Kuzma, recipe for disaster. It was just bad. The Pistons, I give them an F still because they have not been playing well this season. However, they have been making some moves to try to get better in the offseason and after the trade deadline so they could hit on some draft picks. The Hornets, they've been playing a little bit better, so I'll give them a D- and F, but they're still really bad. So no need to talk about that. The Brooklyn Nets, they get an F. Clear-cut F. They've been absolutely disappointing to me. And it really is, it's really sad to say because Ben Simmons, he was supposed to help this Brooklyn Nets team, but he hasn't done anything. He's only been injured for no reason. The Raptors, they deserve a D. Because they're still trying to rebuild. They do have a star player in Scotty Barnes, so they deserve a D, maybe a C-, but the Hawks, they deserve a D. I did not expect them to be this mediocre. Same with the Bulls. They deserve a D. I'm being really harsh on a lot of these teams, I will say. Because, I really expected a lot of these teams to be performing a bit better. The Magic are going to get a B+, because I genuinely did not expect them to be so high in the standings as of right now. The Miami Heat, C-, because I expected the Miami Heat to be a little bit better than the 7th seed. I expected them to be practically a 5th seed as of right now. And the Pacers, A+. Did not expect Tyrese Halliburton to explode the way he did and play so well in a lot of these games in the passing department. The Pacers, they're not the Pacers, excuse me. The Sixers, when they had Embiid, A+. When they lost him, F. I think it's that's the most fair way to analyze it. The New York Knicks, A+, 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 everything is an A. The Knicks are one of the best teams in the East right now. And the Cavs, they also deserve an A. So both of those teams, same with the Celtics as well. The Celtics, the Cavs, and the Knicks, they all get an A. The Knicks get an A+, and so do the Celtics, because I wasn't expecting the Celtics to be this good, and I wasn't expecting the Knicks to be this good either. The Bucks, they, at the beginning of the season, an A, but towards the end of the season, D-, D for Doc, because they have been really, really bad. The Spurs, I'm going to give them a D just because they have Victor Wembanyama, and that is the only reason. And because of that, they are going to be in a great position to be able to compete for the future. The Trailblazers, F. Grizzlies, F. Houston, F. And the Jazz also get an F because all these teams have been really bad, especially the Jazz. Right now, the Jazz are tanked. They should look to tank. So, terrible job. The Warriors, overall, I'll give them a C. Just because they are where I expected them to be in play-in conversations, but I didn't expect the rest of the team to be this mediocre. The Lakers, D-. They should be way higher up in the standings with a prime LeBron James. It's unacceptable, no excuses whatsoever. They need to be higher in these standings. The Kings, B. Just because they were a little bit higher last year, and because of that, I feel like them being in the 8th spot is a little bit downgrading. The Mavericks, they're exactly where I expected them to be, so I'm giving them an A- because they are exactly where they needed to be in the standings. They are the 7th spot. They might be in the play-in, but not really worried about them. The Pelicans, A+. Did not expect the Pelicans to be this high in the standings as of right now. The Suns, they get an A because I totally expected them to be so high in the standings, given the big three with Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal and Devin Booker. And the reason why they aren't ranked higher than the Pelicans, despite them having, they have the same record, but I did not expect the Pelicans' big three to be this good. And the rest of the teams, the Timberwolves, the Thunder, the Clippers, and the Nuggets, the Timberwolves, the Clippers, and the Nuggets, they all get A+, but the Thunder, they get a B. Because they lost to the Pistons, and I am not forgetting that game. They cannot lose to the Pistons, and they cannot continue to be a competitive team, in my personal opinion. But as of right there, that's it. And that is it for this segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in. Those were all of the games and all of the teams that are going to be playing in the previous games. And, I mentioned the teams that are going to be playing in the next games tonight. And I also mentioned the teams and the grades for so far this season. So thank you for tuning into the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. Really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. Thank you once again. And I'd like to remind everybody, as always, to please remember to tip and to donate to get your comments recognized. The link is displayed below in the ticker, as well as in the description of the show segment. That is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Helps the show, makes the show much more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. And once again, the link is displayed below the ticker. That is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. I am your host, Nelson, and as always, take care.
That day, yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to